Thank you for coming. Today we're going to talk about the spending plan for 2014. If we could begin by prayer. Thank you, Lord, for this time to come together and share with one another our intentions for ministry and mission in the coming year. Help us through the issues and challenges so that we might discern your call to us. In God's name, in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. See, the first of two sessions to share information about our intentions for the coming year. Today we're going to focus on just what council went through in terms of objectives and how we organized the spending plan, so you guys could begin to understand and think about it. Next week we'll come back, and depending on your feedback, we'll either do questions or focus more directly on any specific details you want. The other thing we're trying to do, thanks to our videographer, is we're trying to embrace technology, and we recognize that sharing between services in the adult forum is somewhat limiting, and all the folks don't always get to come. So we're going to try and find new ways to get the word out, hopefully through video, through other channels. So we're doing the best we can to try and get the word out to as many people. In particular, this year we think we have some very important challenges that we all need to come together on. So for today, this is the order I'm going to kind of go through. I'll talk about the objectives, which we sort of started talking about. I'll talk about the mission and ministry priorities that council thinks we should focus on in 2014. Council has brought forward, in the form of the spending plan, a series of recommendations that you all need to pray on and think about, so that when we come together on the 26th, we can move forward together in 2014. I'm going to briefly review the numbers. Again, the numbers are important, but it's really about how we're focusing and leveraging our treasures to apply mission and ministry. And then one slide, and if we get to it, we are going to vote this year on a change to the model constitution. I have one slide that Dave helped me with that highlights the changes that you're going to be asked to vote on. If there's more deep discussion on that, we can again address that next week. And then finally, I'm going to talk about, in the plan, you're going to hear a recommendation that we make a term call for a part-time associate pastor. I'm going to talk about the next steps. Should we decide to move forward in that way, what would the next steps be?
But in the annual report that's outside there, page 6 and page 5, there are two really involved sets of numbers. But I want to point out that the one on page 6 is a reconciliation of all our accounts. A lot of people in churches don't do this, and this is where you really get skimming without a problem. Okay, you have to take all your assets and have all your accounts match your assets. Okay, so the numbers here do all match, which is nice. Okay, but you get all the answers. And it just takes a second. If you look at the balance forward left account, we started the year with a $32,000 balance forward, which some people like to call a surplus. I don't. You never have you have balance forward. The balance at the end of the year was $92,000 when you go over to the far right, which says that essentially with all that came in and came out, we were ahead this last year $60,000 because we didn't have any staff. Pretty much, that's the reason. And when you have staff, they also spend other money. So now that other money didn't get spent either. Okay. Now, we have as a church, when you come down the next line to dedicated funds, we have funds that people give us that are encumbered with, they have to go to certain places. They're not to be used for operating budget. Okay. Those funds now at the end of the year are $97,000, which is quite a piece of change. Now, if the building burned down or something and you really had to fix things right away, that money could be reallocated, usually by talking to the people who gave the money to begin with. Okay. Now that Then when you come down, we have all the funds, the account analysis. So at the bottom of that, on the right-hand side, is this number, 235,330.74. That's the current value of what we have in all of our money accounts. The church is not destitute. I want to just point that out. Okay. So that's reserve funds, funds that are against, I said, dedicated funds, everything is there. Then you come down and show in the reconciliation how all these accounts and where they are, and the numbers match. That's the key point. $35,000, a lot of that money is not usable to pay anybody in the office or something like that. I just want you to know we have a lot of these dedicated accounts, which we keep carefully to make sure that the money doesn't float away. Okay, now if you go to page 5, there's just all kinds of numbers. They're important. This is all the activity for these dedicated accounts, these $97,000. So there's a whole list of accounts or line items or activities on the left, the amount of money that came in, the amount of money that went out, and the money left for ongoing. These accounts continue year after year. Now, you'll find out, like for appeals, it'll be zero. I mean, in other words, the right-hand side column will be zero because we collected money for an appeal and we paid it out for an appeal. And so there's a whole bunch of accounts that will be zero. So,
It's on page 5. John.
Page 5 now. Okay. So you can see, all right, so then the other two, just to show you on this chart here on total receipts, besides what we consider offerings, which is down here, which is $203,000 for offerings, we collect other money, which is on the other, and you don't have anything in the books. This is just today. You came, you get extra stuff.
Carl, can you make that full screen?
It is full screen.
It's full stream, we're sorry to say. But fortunately, they're colored. The blue is offering, so by far the vast majority of money comes from offering. But we have designated giving. This is the amount of money that people gave that designated it to a particular function and they want it used only for that function. And if he puts his thing on, I think it's...
Which one do you want to?
This one here.
What color? Pink.
Yeah. That came out to $19,000. So this is $19,000. Other receipts that we may get are from the daycare contribution to the church, items like that. We had some stuff that came in that was not budgeted, which, like some of the use of the building, we just didn't budget that somebody else was going to come in and give $200 because they had a meeting there. We just didn't think, didn't figure that was budgetable. The appeals, the dark purple, is the amount of money that people give when we have an extra mile giving appeal. Capital fund was the amount of money came in for our capital fund, which is obviously dedicated to that. And then the special government check is the benefits check that under 50 employees, small business gets through the ACA. Some people call it Obamacare. And that comes, Dave said it's still going to come. I thought it was quitting in 2013, but it goes on one more year.
You can apply for
Yeah.
2013 by, I think it was March of this year.
Yeah.
So you'll get it
We
next
file
year.
a 990T, it's called, which Joyce Jonath files for us and gets us our money.
Wait a minute, did he say we get it in 2015?
No, 14.
2014.
This year. We'll get a check this year.
Okay, I know it quits
We don't know
eventually.
about next year, that might be.
Yeah,
back on that.
the law changes occasionally. Numbers here, where the pie chart, doesn't really match one-on-one with the other numbers. This is called QuickBooks Classes. Most people don't even use that. What it does is go through the budget in a different way. It's not committees or that, it's by function. And you have to put that in for every bill. And so these are by function. So you can see the operating expenses are this part. I think it was like $102,000, which would be the heat, light, and all that good stuff. The salaries are over here, and they were the largest. The benefits, let's see, the Social Security is here. The benefits that go with the salaries are here. Yeah, that was $33,000 actually. the operating expenses, like 118 it says, 116. The debt payments, which, for our mortgage. The Senate benevolence, which for us is not 17.5%. Then you have, small stuff, local community giving, which is about $11,000. Our dedicated expenses, well, if you collect some dedicated money, maybe you spend it too. So, now, dedicated money is like flowers. Money comes in, we buy the flowers, flowers go out. So those are sort of people that give for flowers. It just doesn't go into the fund, it goes into a and capital disbursement. We did spend some of the capital fund for the, I think this year was like defenses and stuff like that. Okay.
Painting of the building.
Painting of the,
repairing
it was about
siding.
25,000. So I'll just point out, these are the functions, clearly the staff is important. Our operating expenses are big and our Senate benevolence are big. The others are kind of, sort of in the noise, but they're important because the chart is $531,000 total.
So is there a piece on there that's program expenses?
Yeah, program, right.
Which one is that? Program expenses, where are they?
Industries.
No, that's,
Operating expenses.
no, things like Sunday church school and confirmation.
Sunday church
You
school,
know, all that sort of stuff. Program.
Ministries.
Ministries, which number is that?
all operating.
But that includes utilities.
Yeah. Includes essentially all the miscellaneous, you want to call it miscellaneous, but all the expenses for program and running the church.
I have a slide later that breaks it out the way you might.
Yes, yeah, we do put it, we call it operating expense, right, in this chart.
But in a normal year, we would have, that dark blue would be far larger,
Yeah,
because we didn't have,
we did have a
A
full
lot of
staff
it.
all
We
year,
didn't
so
have staff.
in spite of this being this size.
normally it's a bigger chunk of our budget.
Okay,
Okay,
just wanted to.
Thank you.
That's all.
that was in addition to our agenda, so now we'll just make sure, today, like we were discussing, the goal is to share the mission and ministry priorities so that you can understand how council has been wrestling with applying the treasures that Ed has just been talking about. We're going to share council's recommendation on how to best work together to achieve mission and ministry. And then we're going to discuss what implications it actually has for the spending. And as I said, if we have time now, looking at the time, we may not get to model constitution. If not, we'll cover that next week. Everybody should have gotten the model constitution in the mail, and we will have to vote on that on the 26th.
Yes, you did. I did the mail.
So again, every year when we think about spending, we start with our mission, what we're called to do. We're called to gather, as we are today, to worship and learn. We're called to become strengthened in a community and as individuals to follow Christ where He calls us and leads us. And we try through the process to equip one another, to equip the congregation to go out into the world and serve. And that's the focus. We're not doing it for ourselves, we're doing it for the world. So, in considering that, council really, we came together last February in a retreat and struggled with what we think we're all being called to do. And we can't do everything, so we tried to distill it down into some things that we thought were manageable and within our grasp. And the first that we really focused on is that we need to continue to strengthen our youth ministry. As you know, we've had, in the past year, we've lost our youth, our professional youth staff, so we need to continue to fill that gap and drive forward, because the youth and young families are truly the future of the church.
No, they are the church today. That's why they're sitting in here now. They're not the church of the future, they're the church of today.
Amen. Anyway,
Keep going. I'm just like-
That's fine.
That makes me crazy when I hear that.
Good.
We like to see Brendan.
And it's good to see you in the front, so you're on video.
We need to strengthen the entire congregation in order to do discipleship, to deliver on the Lord's mission and ministry in the world. We need to engage one another in living our faith. And as you know, we've been struggling for the past couple of years on providing just the operational business side of the church, my word, business, but the professional staff needs to be supported. We need to support the building. We need to support the gifts that we have. We need to focus on that through 2014. So the spending plan is really aimed at delivering on those priorities. Okay, so what is a spending plan? A spending plan is an intentional approach to leveraging our gifts, both treasure and time and talent, but it's intentional. It's looking forward to say, how are we going to go forward in mission and ministry? It's about being in control of our gifts, and it's about choosing our way forward. So it's a plan, and it's intentional. Okay, so what are the realities?
Can you just so for the youth's benefit, can you just explain that a spending plan, the differences between a spending plan and a budget, real quick?
Sure. And actually, thanks, Maya, because actually I've used that slide in the past, and I didn't put it back in this year. If I had known they were coming, I would have.
Okay.
A budget is actually a limiting approach to thinking about your way forward. A budget says, we are only going to do this, and we are only going to spend $12 on drinks. And it's constraining, and it's intended to hold you back. Whereas a spending plan is a positive statement of what our intentions are, how we think we want to go forward. And it sounds not like a big deal, but it really is a big deal in terms of how you think about it. Because we're not about controlling, we're about reaching out and growing and moving forward. It's an important distinction that we try and make when we go through this process. So what are some of the but even though we're doing a spending plan, we do have realities. I mean, we're constrained. We don't have unlimited resources, so we have to deal with those constraints. So we have to apply our intentions within the realities of what we have to work with. Our primary source of treasure coming into the church is through pledging. Or giving. It's actually giving, but pledging is actually what we can plan on for the coming year for offering. As Ed showed on his chart, the biggest single source of income is offerings. As you can see, through the past, we look back through 2008 up through 2014, the number of pledging families is up, although it's down from our peak in 2010 and 11. The average giving per pledge is actually is pretty good, and it's actually up again. So when people pledge, they are being truly generous, and we're blessed that all of you, the folks in this room, represent the folks who are doing it, and we're truly blessed. But if you take a look,
It's per week.
yeah, no, I was just, well, the
No,
annual,
it's
I had an annual, the per week
next
is
is
kind of chopped off in the end. But if you take a look at the gap between 2010 and 11, 153, and 142, 149 or 142, that gap of, I can't do the math in my head, 10, let's say, 10 pledges at an average of $3,000 per pledge says we're down $30,000 in what we can plan on just from pledging. That constrains, I'm doing rough math, I'm not doing,
We did have some more pledges that came in late, but
yeah,
I'll get to it.
there, yes, people, pledge, please pledge. We're not limited by this. Please, we're not gonna stop here. The point is that the trend in number of people making a pledge who we can plan on, our intentional plan is based on what we know here. So the number of people and the number of dollars is down. That's really the point here, is we have less to work with as we apply our treasure. It's much easier if there's dialogue. Maya, like, you can ask questions.
And I will. Okay, and the reason we're down, I mean, do we have a reason why we're down?
Go ahead, Shane, you want to speak to that?
Some of it is because people are retiring. Some people have lost their jobs. We've had some people that have moved away. And we're losing at the people who are not as engaged with the church are kind of falling away. So there's multiple reasons.
Okay.
So one of the things, Mila, as you know, council has been truly engaged. Pastor has been leading us in a discernment process of the nature of the changing church in America. The ELCA, but the broader church in America, Christian churches in America, are suffering significant change in the way people worship and in what they expect from worship. And we're trying to understand what that means and how to respond to that and how to live in a new world. So there's that, there's the economy, there's the changing nature of the Christian churches in America, and then there's just the changing nature of our congregation, aging, people moving away. So those are all the challenges that we need to face. And speaking to that point, faith formation is the one stave of our plan forward, focusing on youth, even though they're today. But anyways, okay, so this is a really small eye chart, but I wanted this is a 5-year both giving and spending trend. So I think Stephanie had asked earlier about our ministry and mission giving. This chart is actually in your spending plan. It's on page, not the whole chart, but the one column for 2013-2014 is on the, it's on page 8. But basically, Stephanie, this answers the question of how we apply our treasures to our various ministries. And much as Ed said, mission support and pastoral ministry are the two largest single items, followed by administrative support ministry, which is mostly staff. So much between benevolence and our staff, our professional staff delivering ministry, the bulk of our treasure is allocated to those ministry and mission delivery mechanisms. I highlighted in yellow. We're going to talk a few minutes. Ed mentioned earlier we're blessed at the moment with a surplus, primarily because we have been underspending on adult and family and children and youth ministries. Not underspending, but I think we're underinvesting, and certainly underinvesting from what we had planned, and as well as the administrative and support ministry. So when you look at the recommendations that council's making for priority, we're recommending that we renew our focus on children and youth ministry and adult and family ministry through faith formation, and we're recommending that we apply our treasures again back to supporting the administrative and office ministry, because if we don't have that foundation, a lot of the other things don't work as smoothly and effectively as we need them to. So basically, we're going to talk about a plan forward that, as you can see, is a deficit plan. We're going to spend more money than we're forecasting that we take in, and that's primarily going to be funded from the surplus we have because we've underspent in the past. But that's going to have consequences and implications, which we'll talk about. Chris.
So, but the key trend for me is that very top line, right? Total offering and what the path is over time. And I think that is a determinant to a large extent of our spending plan and what we can do going forward.
Right. And in prayerful consideration, council decided, we debated heartily how much we should think of growth in the future. And right now, just looking at the things that we talked about, changing the church in America, changing the nature of our current congregation, and the economy is still not really going gangbusters out there. We're not planning on a significant short-term increase in that trend. we're hoping that it doesn't continue its downward slide. We're hoping that some of the steps that we're recommending actually begin us back on an upward path. But it's not going to be an instantaneous quick fix. So that's the trend we're dealing with. So the plan we're putting forward is what we believe is balanced against faith and prudent stewardship of our treasures.
Okay, I'm going to put it out there. I don't know if the youth are seeing this, but we need to at least understand why. If we're looking at a youth focus, why the 2014 plan is significantly less than what we had looked at from the 2013.
So tell me which number, I might.
Children and youth ministry. Children and youth ministry.
Oh,
Plan
okay,
is.
so one gap in the way I presented the numbers, which doesn't exactly address your point, is we put a special line down here at the bottom. That $30,000 is really going back to hit these two ministries. And it's not a full year. But so you can actually see, we're talking about bringing on an associate pastor. That's what we're really going to have to discuss over the next 3 weeks. And we'll talk a little bit about that going forward. But so yes, I didn't carry the associate pastor, which is part of our approach to addressing that, up to that line. But it's in the plan. Thank you.
I just wanted to make sure that they realize that they're not getting cut, which that's a different
Good.
focus.
Sam, you had a question.
Oh, no, I was just gonna point out that, never mind. I was just gonna point
Sure.
out that now there's no more like compensation for like, the director of youth ministry, that's why. It's-
Oh, yeah, that's yeah, we're shifting how that treasure's being funded. Wait, I got a cue here. Jan, you had your hand up. Good. Kathy?
So just also to clarify, and without jumping ahead to the associate pastor discussion, the amount of money in the budget, or spending plan, sorry, for the associate pastor is less than, even if we went to a whole year's worth of it, than what we were paying.
Yes, let's talk about that when I bring that up. But yes, we no longer have sufficient income, I'm gonna use the word income, we could not, if we wanted to, bring Linda back today, even if we wanted to. We just can't, we don't have the income. So we are trying to balance some of the mission and ministry that they serve. We're trying to balance supporting Pastor and her mission with what we've got available. And the approach, we're going to talk about the approach, but yes, we have to balance those trade-offs, and we're trying to do the best we can with that. Stephanie,
So that's, a part-time associate pastor includes benefits, right? That's a package for salary and benefits.
Yes.
For a part of a year.
For a part of a year, yes. Okay, all right. So those are the numbers. The numbers are important, but it's really not about the numbers. It's what we're trying to do with what we've got here. Okay.
Question. Early on, you said that because we were 10 or so pledges down, we're $30,000 light from where we were, say, in 2011.
Again, don't make the math try and work.
No, I'm not. I'm just trying to
Yes, I did say that.
understand where if there's a focus on growing the membership of the church in order to provide more funds for the future. I realize a lot of those membership growth is impacted by a lot of these different ministries. But is there any specific focus to push the drive to increase membership?
Okay, so what I'd like to do is answer that very carefully. We would love to see the congregation go. As you know, attendance has been going down. But as a council and as understanding our mission in Christians, it's not about growing income through growing membership. We grow membership, hopefully through the Spirit and faith, income will grow. But we consciously and repeatedly and regularly remind ourselves that we're not about going out and bringing people in so that we can grow revenue. So I want to be careful that we're not trying to build a plan that says, well, let's go target this demographic so that we can grow income. Okay, wait. Okay, so I wanted to put that out there first. But however, the realities are that we need to have sufficient income to sustain. So the programs that we're putting forward, one, through focusing on faith formation, through focusing on our current youth and the families, we're going to hopefully educate them in the importance of stewardship. We hopefully are going to continue to talk about stewardship and how important stewardship is in giving. And as we bring new families in, we're going to have to help educate them in stewardship. Pastor, I think you've talked, maybe I'm going to put you on the spot, but you've talked about the changing nature and understanding of younger folks or younger families today and understanding the relationship between pledging and giving. Do you want to make we've talked about that in council. I don't know if you want to.
Some of the challenges that all churches are facing are dealing with younger people who don't find it necessary to be part of an organized institution like church. So they're not going to join and they're not going to give money. What they want to do is to do ministry. And so it's really challenging us to re-examine how do we do church. You and I grew up and did church with our parents, no longer works, and we're seeing evidence of it. If we ask our young adults why they're not in church, we don't speak their
We're not
language.
talking about the guys that are here who are in church.
Yes, exactly.
I'm talking about the young adults off in college or getting married and all. And everybody's up for grabs. It's not just Good Shepherd, it's the entire ELCA, it's Methodists, Baptists, Roman Catholics, Presbyterian, everybody in the entire nation is impacted by the cultural changes we're seeing. What we also talked about is it's not just churches, but our entire culture is in a time of fluctuation. And it happens about every 500 years. And guess what? We're hitting the 500-year anniversary. Yes, 500 years ago, it was the Reformation. And it wasn't just that it impacted churches and the Catholic Church, it impacted the entire society. So we're dealing with all kinds of changes. Do we have a set in stone answer on how to address this? No, I'll be honest with you, we do not. On the other hand, the fact that we even talk about this stuff and that we're talking about how our understanding of theology is changing, how we are dealing with this issue at all, I gotta tell you, we're one of the few churches, I guess, from what I understand, in the New Jersey Synod that's even talking about it. So we ought to at least give ourselves some credit that we're trying to address the issue. Right, Dave?
That's right.
We were told this at our Synod Council retreat.
We were shocked.
We were shocked, yeah, but it was one of those, really? And they said, yes, that, most churches are not even addressing these issues. They're just putting their heads in the sand as they dwindle away.
Thank you. Miley, you're.
And to tag on to that, what we discussed at council is the fact that emerging church, and Chris had said it, wants to do ministry. And the concept that we've been doing at Good Shepherd, which is God's hands, God's work, our hands, has we feel and we know that the people that were engaged just in what we did in September was so exciting. And to try to think of how we're going to do that going forward in this place and make that by making that more of the focus of our reaching out and doing that work, whatever else will happen, people will come. I mean, that's the point that we're not going to focus on trying to put quote unquote butts in the seats, which we heard at one of the DVDs or something like that, or something. I don't think it might have been the faith formation, whatever. Anyway, it's not about getting somebody to sit down and be in that pew and et cetera. It's about being exciting about doing God's work and being out there and doing God's work. And by virtue of that, everything else will happen.
By being welcoming, Kevin, I think the answer is by being welcoming, by offering and doing ministry, we're hoping to engage more people in the community. And prayerfully, we hope that the treasures follow.
But our message has to get out to people. Our message has to get out to people to tell them that the products that we're offering, the ministries that we're offering, we have changed them to make them attractive to you.
Yes.
And you need to check it out. that word has to get out, because
okay,
I've seen that happen with the daycare just by putting a sign on the street.
It's so fabulous.
People see it and,
Well, it's the social media.
right.
Being very, very.
The article
Right.
and the connection, Kat's putting pictures out on the
But
web
it's
all the
critical
time.
that that message
It's
gets
so
out.
exciting, yeah.
Okay, and I want to add one more thing, and I'm putting it right back on you. That works well for the daycare, but some of the studies we looked at, the single biggest factor that brings people back to the church is personal invitation. Personal invitation. Each one of you is called and challenged to bring people, call people in, to spread the word, as Kevin said, about what we're doing and what's exciting about what we're doing. Yes, we're going to try and communicate it through the other channels, but personal invitation is a key.
Works best.
One of the other things, and Jean Locke approached me about this, she's not here today, I'm going to talk to her more about it. One of the things is we have people who are drifting away from our congregation, people who've been faithful. They didn't move, we're not sure why. Maybe they're not even unhappy. But one of the things that, by the time it gets to the numbers that we see here, and we figure out from the process that they've drifted away, it's been a year. On the other hand, you're sitting next to these folks every week in the pew. And if you look left and right and you see somebody who's not there, or you don't see somebody who used to be there, I guess. The point is, don't wait for it to flow through the numbers. Either personally call them up and say, hey, did something happen? Are you okay? If you personally aren't comfortable doing that, for whatever reason, let pastor know that so-and-so, you haven't seen them in a while, that maybe we should have a ministry outreach. We've got to invite people back. We've got to invite people back. We've got to invite new people to come. That's the call and challenge to each of us. Yes, we'll do advertising and we'll try and figure out how to make social
We'll get
media
the word out.
Yep.
A variety
Getting the word
of
out.
Yes.
methods.
But one of the things that we in council have been thinking about and now hoping, working about, is how do we integrate our focus on youth with our focus on adult and family faith formation. And part of the answer is young families. It's not just the teens and the 20-somethings in our congregation, it's their parents. And I think we need to do a lot more innovative and disciplined work to engage those folks, to have programs and mission here that appeal to them, that fit their need for spiritual development.
And let me qualify that, or just to tag on to that. What you guys are seeing as our teens here are families. You grew up with your parents very much involved in church. What's happening in the younger folks that are coming through, there's a whole generation of people who are becoming parents who never went to church. So that is the difference. They don't even know the importance of what they could get by being in this community. And that's what Chris is talking about, is the fact that we have to have something that is more in tune to bringing those families, being able to be welcoming to those families and sharing with them things that they may not even know they need or want, and being opening to that, to be able to bring them in. Okay, does that help to
Great,
qualify?
yes. So what I'd like to do, I'd like to move forward, because there's a couple of points I want to get through. I will stay as long after this as anybody who wants to stay and discuss. I'll be back next week. But I do want to get through a couple of points, because you need to go away and think about these things and pray on these things. Okay, so what is council recommending? We've been talking about it all along, that we're going to focus on faith formation across the entire congregation, but focusing on youth and young families, primarily to address the youth ministry and the discipleship ministry. We need to focus on that. That's what we've decided we want to put our energies in. And actually, I've got my slide broken, so I want to come back to this slide. We are committed at council we struggled mightily on this, but we believe the core and the DNA of who we are is benevolence. It is one of our key founding, guiding principles. So we're recommending, hang on, let me finish. Yeah. We're recommending right now that we maintain our historic level of benevolence. We're gonna have to talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, okay, just another qualification as to what that means. Benevolence is our outreach to the world. It takes care of global missions, it takes care of the missions that are a part of our local communities and part of our country. So that's where Lutheran missions go out, and they do and Lutheran social services go out, and they'll be at all of the disasters around the country and all over the world. So just to know what that benevolence means. Go ahead.
So we're committed right off the first fruits. The first thing we do, we ensure commitment to that benevolence. Right now, that's our plan, that's what we're recommending to you. Okay, so more active. We're recommending that we extend the volunteer coordinator position for 1 year. We've talked to Jan, we've talked to Pastor, we've talked to many of you. We believe that the work that Jan is doing, or that the volunteer coordinator is doing, is actually enabling the office to do a better job. It's offloading the person, the office now Laura, but it's separating that work into buckets that are more in rhythm with that. So we're recommending to you that we extend that position. Last year, it was a trial position. We did it. We think it worked. We hope that you believe that it worked. So we're recommending that we move forward with that. Recommendation, and the big step forward, is that we're recommending that we seek a part-time associate pastor. That person will be focused on faith formation for the entire congregation, but with a focus on youth and young families, who will support Pastor Chris in worship ministry and providing pastoral care. The two key points on this are we're recommending that it's a part-time call and that it's a term call. And I'll have 2 slides on what that is in a minute, but it's constraining and bounding, primarily because we're recommending that we fund the associate pastor using the current surplus. So the question on everybody's mind is, what will that associate pastor do? We haven't, until we actually agree to move forward, we actually bring a call committee together.
And we meet with the Synod Bishop.
And we meet with the Synod. I have that all laid out. We won't have the exact job description written yet, but in general, we're recommending that this individual can increase our ability to visit the homes of youth and their parents, to do more home visits, to do more, get out in the community. It doesn't even have to be just people in our congregation, it could be people you guys say, hey, I got this friend and they're struggling. Maybe you could go talk to them. I mean, you're another great lead for us on where are the youth that need us. I don't know the youth that need us. You guys know the youth that need us.
Or their families.
Or their families.
And their families.
And their families. We want this person to give us more ability to become actively involved with the families, within the congregation, within the community. We need to get back to being able to plan and participate in youth events in cooperation and collaboration with our youth leaders and our youth leaders and youth leaders. And
Synod.
I'm sorry?
And Synod.
Oh, and Synod, yes. And then the last thing is, we really need to extend pastors' ability to do pastoral ministry. And this gives her a partner to move forward. So those are examples of what we would do. Yes?
What does the volunteer coordinator do? What is that? I mean, you said they take jobs away from rural.
Well, so the volunteer coordinator is responsible for, I mean, in order to make the church operate every week, there is an enormous number of people that have to come together to deliver. Certainly the ministry chairs have an important part of structuring that and delivering ministry. But there's a lot of coordination, communication, last minute fill-in to make sure that we hit all of those marks. So it's a person to sometimes be a traffic cop, it's a person to sometimes answer questions.
Also, Janice has become rather adept at talking to people in the narthex and over coffee. She has her ears open to comments that they make about things they like to do, perhaps issues that they're having at home, pastoral care issues, she relates to me. But she's always hearing and looking for opportunities to match people's gifts with opportunities here.
Then why is it a paid position?
Because there's some accountability that's required in order to be able to make sure that it's getting done, and that she is part of my supervision to help me get this work done. It used to be Susan did it, and then Amy used to do it, and it was just not, it wasn't done well, because it wasn't their fault. They weren't members here, they weren't here on Sundays. This is a person who is part of the community, and she's getting to know people and matching gifts with opportunities, so.
People here who need to be recognized, who put in a lot of time, who don't get paid. And I think that's causing, so I think the first point that Pastor made, if it's a paid staff position, you're accountable. You have to be here, it's not, well, it's a job, it's not optional. Volunteer doesn't feel like coming in someday. I think that's the root of the key distinction. But it is something that council struggles with, because we know that a lot of you have given an enormous amount of your time, and it's an issue, or not an issue, but it's something we're aware of and we struggle with. Okay. So, some questions. One of the things that council struggled with was the type of resource, the type of person to bring in. Should we call in another, call lay professional? Should we bring in an educated, not educated, but non-ordained person? And we actually felt that the best option would be if we can find an ordained person who can be a partner in ministry, can work with pastor on all of those ministry things, give her someone to collaborate with, someone to support with in terms of strategy. It gives us more flexibility in offering services. I know that we put a lot of energy in Spirit Cafe, and one of the things that we struggled with was being able to provide that pastoral support for Spirit Cafe. So it could perhaps revitalize programs like that. So we believe it gives us some reach there. And by bringing in a depth of theological training, an ordained person versus a non-ordained person that can participate in confirmation, we can revitalize Bible study and other theological, part of our in equipping us to serve and understand in the mission. So we felt that the best option of bringing a resource in would be an ordained pastor.
Carl?
Yes.
Can I add one thing about children and youth? The Children and Youth Ministry does as best as it can in handling the day-to-day, I don't like using the word business, but business of children, right, and youth ministry. That includes everything from Sunday school to determining which synod events do we sign our youth for, that kind of thing. And there is an enormous amount of work. And we do a pretty good job of handling that. I mean, we still have a ways to go, but Sunday school is running nice and smooth, and confirmation's running reasonably smooth. I know that Pastor Chris needs the help with
great small group guides.
Yeah, absolutely. But one thing that we're missing, though, is from an ordained, if we had somebody ordained who can lead the youth, those are things that there are things that that person will do that I and others on our team that are lay people that are not ordained we're not really equipped to do that, right? So there are things that are, whether it's from a theological perspective or really from a visionary type of thing. What is best or how is the best way to engage our youth to help them understand what they want out of a youth program, right? Because it's really up to the youth and what they want. And I speak for myself. I, as a lay person, although I'm the chair of the ministry team, I'm not that person. It's just not what I do. It's not my expertise, and that's why my vote because I'm on the council, my vote for an associate pastor was because of that. We need that extra, expertise that we just don't have today with volunteers. So.
Thank you for reading that. Okay, so the other question is why a part-time term call? There's two parts to that, part-time and term. Part-time says we're not bringing a full-time resource in. That person will work something less than 40 hours a week, although we hope prayerfully that they'll. we'll have to, yes, it will be less than full-time. And what is a term call? A term call says that both we as a congregation and the called individual understand that there's a time bound. We're recommending right now, I think, a 33-month call. And we struggle with that. But in talking to pastor, we understand, associate pastors understand, or second pastors understand that it may not be a long-term call. So we don't believe that really is limiting our ability to launch this program.
Well, to rephrase it, just to
Okay.
tweak that a little bit.
Okay, please.
I was an associate pastor. When you come on a staff as an associate pastor, you get the sense that you're probably not going to be there forever. 2 to 5 years is pretty normal for an associate pastor when they are thinking it's time to move on, either as a solo pastor or as the senior pastor. So that's not unusual. So for us to say 33 months, actually that's not an unrealistic expectation. For us to also say that it's a term with the option that we can meet as a congregation and extend it to a regular call with no ending in sight, this hopefully will get us over that initial hump that we just don't have the funding. But this could get us going. Otherwise, if we don't do anything this year, and not get past stuck, I'm not gonna make it. You know what? You're gonna have a funeral for me. And I'm not joking anymore, you know, it's just, I can't keep this up anymore. So we need to either get unstuck or something else will happen. And I just need to be honest with you. That's where this is headed. But other congregations have done part-time term call. The congregation that I know the pastor well, it went very well. They fell in love with the part-time term call pastor. They decided it was worth supporting this person in the ministries that she was providing. And so they grew into it.
And if we do a part-time term call, that doesn't mean that if our situation improves, that we can't
Extend it to a full
yeah,
time.
it's not limiting, but it does communicate both to the congregation what our current visibility into our capability, funding capabilities are. We can almost fund this depending on the exact numbers from the current surplus. There is an out-year risk in the third year that if the numbers don't turn around, and depending on the final compensation package that we actually negotiate, if the income and offerings don't turn around or continue their downward trend, it's going to have to come out of benevolence. We have no choice. Or the choice is to not do this or fund it from benevolence.
Or the choice might be at the end of the third year or 33 months, we say, we can't sustain this and we're going to have to end the call.
Right.
And the person who comes to this call knows that that's a possibility. So we're not doing a bait and switch kind of thing. When we work with the synod, either Bishop Bartholomew or her assistant, we have to put all of this on the table so that we're clear. And also, they want to know what kind of funding we're going to provide. So
Denise?
But as it stands right now, we can't pay for the 33?
Depending on what the final compensation, the number, if we run at the annualized number that's in the current spending plan, which is $3,300 a month, all in, we can do it. I think that's a pretty low number, and we may have to. This year, I think we're going to be okay because one, I doubt we're actually going to get started by April 1st, which is where the math was. So I think this year is pretty good in terms of the 30,000. We're going to have to look at the fund. Again, remember, when we do the call process, we have to bring that back to the congregation with the final numbers and the final compensation and pay package. So that has to be voted. That, again, we'll have to have another and that's in my later. So right now, what we're looking for is a statement of intent, a statement of, yes, the congregation is behind this in terms of the plan. Then we can actually begin the process. If you guys vote down the spending plan, or that line in the spending plan, we'll have to regroup and come back to you with another approach, whatever that is.
But when we hire this person, we will know where the funds are coming from to pay them.
We will
for the
know
3 years.
yes, we have to tell Synod that before we can
We're not
complete
gonna hire
the
somebody and
process.
not be able to pay them.
That is correct.
We will have to present, and part of that, when the final compensation package and our final financial plan, we're gonna have to come back to you with that set of numbers.
What is part-time, 10 hours, 20 hours, 30
Well, that's
hours?
what Pastor says.
About 30 hours a week?
Yeah, we're gonna have to balance what part-time means against the spending. It's less than full-time right now.
That was my question. What is part-time? I was thinking more 10 or 15 hours a week.
But for 30,000, what?
That's what we have to go find.
Well, 30,000 is not a full year though, right?
No, it's not a full year. That would annualize to 40,000 a year, which, if I looked at the compensation guidelines from New Jersey Synod, from 0 to 3 year pastor is in the $47,000 at the low range, plus some housing and benefits. So,
Part-time would be.
so 60,000 all in, we could probably do full-time. So a young pastor, 0 to 2 or 3 years.
They're very inexperienced.
Very inexperienced, so
But lots of energy.
lots of. So those, as we move forward, if the message from the congregation is that we think this is the path forward, and this is where we want to put our treasure, then we're going to have to go and do the next level of financial planning, and we're gonna have to come back to you. This was the best information we had at this time. We can't really even begin the process, or we felt it was best to not really begin the process without having this discussion, without putting a stake in our intentional spending plan, and seeing if this is where we want to go as a congregation. Jeff?
What are our options if you can't find somebody who's willing to come to New Jersey? I mean, this is one of the most expensive parts of the country. To have somebody come in and work as a part-time pastor for that amount of money, I think it's going to be very difficult to find. So what are our other options?
Okay, so if we find through the call process that we cannot accomplish this plan, what are our options? One, we come back and say, can we increase funding and go for a full-time pastor and pay reload? Go back to this body and say, okay, if we really believe this, we've got to cut benevolence to make up the gap. That's an option. So we have the option to go back to the well and ask for more money, more giving. We think that people who are giving faithfully now are probably giving near what they can give. But there are others we can reach out to. Cut benevolence. Plan. You asked for options. I'm giving you options. Another option is to say, okay, we can't do a called pastor. Let's see if we can do an associate in ministry. Okay, we can't do an associate ministry. What if we get a lay person who was an ex-school teacher who loves kids and
A faith formation director. Yeah.
right? Yes. So we have to back down, and we have to balance our. The plan doesn't change. The objective doesn't change. Strengthening youth ministry, strengthening discipleship, and supporting the staff. What then we have to continue is evolve our tactics to accomplish that mission, trading off what we have to work with. And that's a partnership between all of us. We're not doing anything in a vacuum without getting the congregation involved. What we're trying to do is organize the information so you can make informed decisions. Okay, so just a couple of points from our Constitution about calling a pastor. I just pulled out the two relevant points that I could find. There may be others. I know there are people here who are really steeped in the Constitution. But basically, the council does not call the pastor, the congregation calls the pastor.
Can I do a count?
The key here is that authority to call a pastor belongs to the congregation, and it will require a 2/3 majority vote of the congregation. Okay? Which means we've got to get more than just a quorum to come to that meeting. 47 people, which is the quorum for our business meetings, is not enough to do that process. We have to, if we're gonna do this, not only do we have to do the call process and make the finances work, we gotta get people in the seats. We gotta get, this is the one time we do have to get butts in the seats.
Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Okay. Two-thirds is almost 180 people.
Wow.
I did the math really quickly in my head. I think we're at like, what was the membership number?
Well, it's 470 confirmed, because that's the 10%. I mean,
Yeah,
in
so
terms of what they
I did 3 something and divided by 3 and 1, so it's many hundreds of people. Now, what I have to look at, just so we know, is the new Constitution may let us do that electronically. We may be able to facilitate that vote electronically. I've got to really read the details. Okay, so that's our Constitution. In general,
Yeah.
Wait, I'm confused by the number though. It says, is this what is actual right now? Because it says 2/3 majority valid vote of members present.
oh, wait, maybe I missed, you're right, thank you, Bill. I missed, so maybe we have to have a quorum. Man, that's a great thing, thank you.
exactly right.
That is correct.
That's correct.
I misinterpreted. My mistake. Thank you. Thank you. I thought it was 2/3.
With a quorum.
It's 2/3 of the quorum.
Two-thirds of the quorum. Thank you. I apologize. No, thanks.
I thought you read through.
Yeah, we need 2/3 of
Okay,
1/3.
thank you. My mistake. Okay, so that's the Constitution. So what is the process? Generally, we're going to follow the same call process that we did.
This is so important. Can we do this next week?
I can do this next week.
Because I think a lot of people are going to want to hear that.
All right, I will. So let me go all the way to the end. Can you guys, if there's something you didn't, and there's nobody here, you guys know this. If you have questions, send them to Ask Council or Council Chair, so that I know what the questions are. If there's topics you want to make sure we hit next week.
What is the outline for next week specifically?
Not yet. Right now it was going to be just.
That can be open to suggestions.
That's what I'm saying.
Open depending on what happened at this meeting.
Tell them the things you most want to hear.
So you're going to be talking more about the role of the associate pastor,
That's
the
what we thought.
expectations and things like that. Okay.
That's what we
Okay.
thought. But,
Next week, yeah,
yes.
okay. Just want to make sure.
The answer is that's still, I'm going to be honest, I'm thinking that that's going to be more of a dialogue than a lecture. It's going to be, here are some framework ideas. What speaks to you?
Yeah.
You heard Pastor say she desperately feels the need for support.
Absolutely can see that, yeah.
So, but what else speaks to us as a congregation that we can get behind? Martin?
I just don't have a clear understanding of how a part-time associate pastor fulfills the entire staffing needs that we have.
Well,
It does.
couple of thoughts on that. So it may not, but the other thing is, the reality is today, we're a much smaller church than we used to be. So our staffing needs today maybe less. But the reality is we only have so much treasure to deal with. So where we're missing, we're gonna have to step up with volunteers.
Yeah, but what I'm hearing, from Pastor Chris is, she's basically burnt out. Okay?
Correct.
And part of that, a large part of that, I think, is administrative.
I think that Laura will make, if things work out the way we hope, that is going to eliminate some portion, hopefully a significant portion of the strain that she's been on for the last 18 months.
Laura's gonna be full-time?
Laura will be
Yes.
full-time.
And she hasn't started full-time yet,
She
right?
will
Correct.
start on the 20th.
Okay.
Only because she had to
Right, give her
make the,
notice,
you get notice, yeah.
And she's fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
Yeah.
just totally amazed at what she's
Yeah.
accomplished in that short amount of time that she's been there part-time.
So part of that, Martin, actually, is we hope that Laura will relieve some of that burden, hopefully a lot of that burden.
And, you know, part of the problem is our size right now, we're at 200 attendees at every Sunday across services. 200 is kind of the tipping point between one pastor and two pastors in the ELCA as a whole. So when we look at those statistics, 200 is kind of the tipping point. We're unfortunately right on it, which means that we're a little too large for one pastor. And we're not large enough to support two fully. It's not an issue for us alone.
Right.
But this is what we're going to struggle with for the next 3 weeks when we come to the vote, and it's what we're going to struggle with as a congregation as we figure out what we're called to do and how we're called to serve for the next couple of years. The world is changing around us. We have to figure out how to respond to that and still step forward in mission and ministry.
Are you going to be sending some of this information out to the congregation in any kind of a mailing?
Yeah, we're gonna put it up on YouTube.
And you have constant contact that you could
So
send the slides.
if you have some ideas, one of the things I constantly struggle with is I can certainly email these slides out. The problem I struggle with is a lot of the
Discussion.
is what was the feeling? What was the discussion?
Yeah.
Just reading the words.
Right.
Not sure it comes across. So we're gonna try.
But if you could send something out in this next week and tell people come next Sunday and the following Sunday to get that discussion, maybe you could get a few more faces.
Okay.
Beyond those that are, already kind of in the know or, involved.
So we'll try and come up with something to get that out. But send suggestions if there's gaps, if there's something you didn't understand, if there's something you just really think we need to spend more time on. I can do, like I said, I can come next Sunday between, I can do it after, I can come in the evenings, council members are available. We've offered evening sessions in the past, and unfortunately people and their schedules just, it really didn't work. We'll do whatever you'd like. But Martin, you're right, we're struggling with this, may not be everything we need. But it's a step forward.